Hi everybody, welcome back to Ethereal Arts Studio, where I'm an artist, you're an artist, we are all artists. It's pretty cool that you're here today, because I thought that today we could paint an iconic scene from an iconic movie, 1993's Steven Spielberg super blockbuster, Jurassic Park. By the way, my name is Juan Scribe, and here at Ethereal Arts Studio, I'm an artist, you're an artist, we are all artists.
Okay, so let's start with the top of the canvas. Let's start at the top by mixing some blue and some whites to make a sky blue. I have a 1.5-inch flat brush, but you could just say a large brush that we are going to use to brush from side to side to fill in that sky about 3 or 4 inches from the top. So now I have a smaller brush than the previous one. This is number 12 flat, and I'm gonna mix more blue into that mixture that I used for the sky. I'm gonna mix some blue in there and also some white, some black, and actually some green too. But I'm gonna add more white to this because I want it to be pretty light, since it's gonna be the farthest away region of trees and mountains that is, a little bit lighter and harder to see. So I'm gonna use my brush to then apply some of that paint and move my hand as if it's kind of shaking to make it look like it's a terrain, like it's up the tops of trees. From one side to the other, as you can see, is not a perfectly straight line. It's supposed to look like it's, mountainous and it has, the tops of trees in there. So now I added more black to that same mixture and more green too. It's a little bit more black also. And then to make it a little bit lighter, I'm gonna add some white to it. But it's gonna be altogether darker than the previous region that I added. This is going to be closer to us, so it should be darker. So with this, I'm going to start painting more of this background, but it's not all the way back. It's closer to us than the first, land that we added. So I start here at the left side, and it's going to overlap. It's going to cover some of the areas that are already there far away. And as you can see, it's darker. Okay, so now let's move on to some yellow, okay guys? So I'm gonna wash my brush and dry it really well. Then I'm gonna mix some green with some yellow so that the green could be brighter and richer. And I'm actually also gonna add a little bit of white to it so that since it's far away still, it looks a little bit lighter. Then I'm gonna use the same brush, it's a number 12 flat. I'm using it to apply it to add some of this grass. And what I want you to do now is to mix some brown after you washed and dried your brush. I should have done that. Mix some brown and some green to then dab on some trees on this land right underneath, right? Actually, it's going to overlap with the grass that we just added, as you will see. So I want to take this time as I add all these trees and just dab them on, just kind of poke the canvas. I want to take this time to shout out all of my subscribers. Our channel is growing thanks to you. Thank you so much for your kind comments, everybody. Kev Betnars, thank you so much for sharing your work that you have completed. It's such an honor to be able to see just people using the videos to create beautiful paintings. So thank you everybody. And anyone who is watching that is not subscribed, well, now is your opportunity. Make sure you do so, and also hit the notifications button. Make sure you join us so that we can continue to make great tutorials for everybody. So now what I'm gonna do is take some brown and make a line underneath those trees, and it's gonna start mixing with the green, which is good. We want it to mix. We want it to be more cohesive and natural. So now I'm going to mix some yellow and green again. This time there is more yellow so that it could be brighter. I'm also going to add white, and this is going to be for the grass that is by the lake where the Parasaurolophus are drinking, out of the lake. So Jurassic Park, one of my top 2 favorite movies of all time. It changed my life. I was 9 years old and I was so excited. I loved dinosaurs before the movie, and I love dinosaurs even more after the movie. It helped my reading because I read every dinosaur book that was available at the Queens Public Library or at my school, and it was just a life-changing experience. And ever since then, I've been a huge dinosaur fan, and even more of a movie fan than previously before Jurassic Park. So with the new Jurassic World coming out, I wanted to make sure that I made some time to paint to one of the greatest adventure and science fiction thrillers of our time. Here I'm adding some brown to the edges of this land to indicate some shadow, some dirt also, the ground right underneath the grass. And now what I'm doing is I'm going to make the water, the color for the water. So it's blue and white. Very simple. Just like the sky, maybe a slight tad bit darker. And I'm using the same brush. I did wash the brush though before I started the water, because obviously there was green in it. So I did wash it. A lot of course, what you can't see is because of the editing, but you can always pause any of my videos to make sure that you don't miss any step. We have been using a wet on wet technique, so I haven't really allowed for much drying. I'll make sure that I announce when something has to be dry before the next step. Okay, so we're getting there, guys. So let's make this yellowish green mixture that we used for the grass where the lake is, where the Parasaurolophus are going to be. Let's make it darker by adding more green and applying that to add land. So we're getting closer to the foreground now. And now we're going to go back to being bright. So we're going to make it even brighter than it was before. We're going to add more yellow to it. We're going to go back to being very, very yellowish and bright so that we can add the land that is now closest to us. And it's going to go all the way down to the bottom of the canvas. I'm using the big brush from the beginning of the video to cover more ground quicker. So now I'm going to make a dark green. I'm going to mix some black and green, and this dark green is going to be so that I can add shadows to some of these faraway trees over here, mostly the bottoms, but also in the middle parts of the trees. And then I'm also going to use an even smaller brush, number 4 flat brush that I have, to paint some shrubs or bushes that are right between the two lands that we just added. And this is with the same dark green, and what I'm doing is pretty much just dabbing, poking on leaves to indicate that there is a bush there. And I'm going to do a couple of these bushes. Okay guys, so now here I have a wet fan brush. I wet it and I watered down a little bit of white paint to dab on some light that is hitting the water, that is reflecting on the water, to add a little bit of realism to the water, to the lake. Okay guys, are you ready to paint some dinosaurs with me? So let's make a dark green by adding even more black to our dark green mixture. And we need a detail brush. We need something very small. I'm gonna paint 2 Parasaurolophus, but altogether there are gonna be 8 or 7 Parasaurolophus in our painting. But I'll show you how to make the first 2. So this dinosaur is facing down, he's about to drink water, so this is its back. And now I'm painting the tail. So I painted the head, the neck, the underside, and now the tail. There's no legs yet. Well, now here it is. 2 legs, and it has 2 arms as well. And a crest, the famous crest of the Parasaurolophus. So that's one. Now I'm going to paint a second one. This one is not leaning down to drink water. This one is kind of standing up. The head, the neck, the back, the tail, most of its body, and the legs. And the 2 arms that are, it's walking on all 4s, and the crest. Fill it in a little bit, give it more mass. And there are 2 dinosaurs right there. Boom, now we have a bunch. Let's mix a little bit of black paint, just a tiny bit, with some brown paint, mostly brown, so that we can paint the famous Brachiosaur. We're gonna paint 2 Brachiosaurus coming out of the water. They're gonna resemble Loch Ness monsters at first because they are mostly immersed. They are emerging from bathing in that lake. So Brachiosaurus has a long neck and a tiny little head with a bump at the top of its head. So we do want to let these dinosaurs dry, the Parasaurolophus and the Brachiosaurus, before we actually add another coat of paint to all of them. We want them to be nice and bold and dark, not translucent and see-through. So we're gonna let them dry and then do this again, but you won't actually see it. It's just gonna show that it's darker all of a sudden. Okay, so let's add more details to these dinosaurs once they dried, and we added a second coat to them. So let's start with the Parasaurolophus. We'll add white with our detail brush to their backs to indicate that there is a lot of light hitting their backs, and also to their heads and faces slightly. Okay, so let's take some time to add some final details to our paintings. Here I'm adding some brown tree trunk hints, not full tree trunks, just parts that are hidden between the leaves. You see some of them peering out. And I'm gonna do the same thing but with black for the bushes. There are some branches in between there that you can see partly, and we're gonna do that to add some realism. Once we do that, we're ready to open the park.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
Thank you so much for watching and painting with me. Hit the notification button so you won't miss our upcoming videos. And also check out etherealartsstudio.com.